Hello everyone, it's Mary with Happy Pine Soap. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going over longevity. Basically, how do you get your soap to last longer in the shower or the bath, or if you use it for washing your hands at the sink. But in essence, how do you get that darn soap to last longer? So this is something a lot of newer soapers struggle with at first, is trying to find recipes that will last longer. So that's what we're going to be going over today. Not only what is longevity, how you can create recipes that last longer in the bath or shower, as well as I'll be going over how to use rose clay and incorporate charcoal, and we'll do a beautiful circling Taiwan swirl as well. So if you're a newer soaper, this information will be really helpful. I also have other videos for new soapers, like on how to use soap calc, how to create your own recipes, lots of really useful tips and tricks for newer soapers. And for more experienced soapers, I have a lot of really cool, intricate designs and great recipes that last a long time in terms of giving you working times. So I have slower moving recipes, faster moving recipes. So I have all sorts of really awesome information on my channel. So if you haven't hit the like or subscribe button, feel free to do that. That helps my channel grow. And without further ado, let's get started. So longevity is basically the amount of palmitic and stearic acids in your recipe. And these are the ones that add hardness, stability, and contribute to a longer lasting bar. In addition, these two fatty acids are long chain fatty acids and are more insoluble, so they don't dissolve very easily in water, which makes your bar also last longer. This is a screenshot from today's recipe, and as you see here, our palmitic and stearic acid numbers equal 30 when you add them up. So that's what you're looking for when you make recipes, are these two numbers adding up to 30 or more. So by now you're probably thinking, well, what oils are going to give me a higher palmitic and stearic acid number? And so there are several that you can use that are pretty common. You have tallow and lard, which are both excellent animal fats that are high in both palmitic and stearic acid, as well as palm oil, cocoa butter, and shea butter. So there are a few extra details to keep in mind, that there are some trade-offs to a higher longevity number. And that can come in the form of reduced lather, faster trace, which is basically how fast your soap recipe comes together and thickens. And so balance is key. So making sure that you add additional oils in besides those that we just mentioned, so that your trace is more controlled and so that you have some wonderful lather still. So you'll see in the recipe that I'll show you in just a little bit that we added some additional ones as well. So it's a very nice, well-balanced recipe that behaves itself. It has a very nice trace time. It doesn't thicken too fast, and it has some wonderful bubbles as well. And one last thing I wanted to share are a few ones that are high in palmitic acid. So that's palm oil, beef tallow, lard, cocoa butter, and avocado butter or oil. And then those that are high in stearic acid are ones like your kokum butter, your Elipe butter, shea butter, cocoa butter, mango seed butter, and animal tallow. Here is our recipe that we're using today. Feel free to screenshot this if you would like to, or take a picture of it. We're going to be using a bit higher of a lye concentration, which you see at 40% there. I adore water discounts, and I have other videos that explain why that is on my channel. Feel free to look for those. And we'll be using coconut oil for some beautiful stable bubbles, lard, tallow, beef, shea butter, sunflower oil, and castor oil as well to support bubbles. And as I mentioned, this recipe is fabulous for, it has a nice, pretty long trace actually. It doesn't thicken too fast. I've already had time to use this soap at home, and it has a wonderful lather, and it just is an overall just a wonderful, well-performing soap that lasts a long time in the shower or bath as well. Some of the equipment that we use today is Crafter's Choice regular loaf silicone mold. It's the 1501. And I also used for the Circling Taiwan Swirl, I also used their dividers as well, which you see here. These are a perfect fit for this mold and work wonderfully. In addition, we're using rose clay, which I got from Brambleberry, as well as activated charcoal, which is also from Brambleberry. If you've never used rose clay, you want to make sure to pre-mix this with water, and that's because clays will absorb water in your recipe and can lead to things like cracking in your soap, so you don't want that to happen. So pre-mix it with some water. In this case, I used 1 teaspoon of rose clay to 1 tablespoon of distilled water, and I used my mini mixer, which you see here, to blend the two together to a nice smooth consistency. And then it's all ready to go when I get the soap recipe all set up and blended. And the added water here will not make any difference whatsoever to your recipe. Now, charcoal's a bit different. This one is going to use a lightweight oil to blend it instead of water. So I used 1 teaspoon of charcoal to 1 tablespoon of this lightweight oil here. And again, I blended it to a nice smooth consistency with our mini blender. And for anybody who might be curious, the extra 1 tablespoon of oil is so small that it doesn't make a difference in our recipe either. I do this all the time with all different types of micas, and I've never had a problem. And for our fragrance, we're using Mahogany, which is a beautiful, rich unisex fragrance from Brambleberry. Whenever I start soaping, I always start with our hard oils, which are those that are solid at room temperature. So this is coconut oil that you see me measuring out. For beginners, make sure your scale is always set to 0 before you start adding your oils. You don't want to accidentally measure incorrectly. So I always put the bowl on the scale and then 0 it out. This is our lard that's going in. And then we also are putting in our tallow here, which you can see. And again, before I add any new oil, I will always 0 out the scale again so that each measurement is accurate. And then last but not least, for our hard oils, we're adding in our shea butter. You will go ahead and melt your hard oils in the microwave carefully, about 30 seconds at a time, until your temperature reaches about 145, roughly 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And that will ensure that all those hard palmitic and stearic acids are melted appropriately. As you see, I have a few last little bits of probably shea butter is the hardest one. So I'll just keep stirring until those are melted. And as you noticed, the temperature does start dropping. Even though the temperature is pretty high, it'll drop pretty quickly once it's out of the microwave. And that is when I start measuring out our soft oils, which will also bring down the temperature naturally of our warm oils. So this is the sunflower oil and the castor oil going in. And then I usually like to measure the temps again. And I'm going to wait till these oils fall to about 90 degrees or so before I add our lye solution. And after about 20 minutes or so, I check the temperatures and our oils are now around that 90 degrees Fahrenheit and we're ready to add our lye solution. And I got that one down to about 68 degrees Fahrenheit as well. I wanted it nice and cool just to prevent the trace from going too fast. So carefully pour your lye solution into the warm oils. I like to pour it over a spatula just to prevent any splashbacks as much as possible. And then I went ahead and stirred just a little bit by hand before adding our stick blender. And you won't need to blend this recipe very long at all. I think I blended it in about 2 5-second bursts roughly. Go ahead and burp your stick blender just to remove some of those air bubbles from the stick blender going into the solution. As you see, it's not very long. I like to kind of check trace here by pulling the blender up and hand stirring. Burp it again. And then I went ahead and blended it for about another 5 seconds. And then I was pretty happy with the trace. It was a nice, thin, light trace, but it was fully emulsified and the oils will not come out of the solution. And then here you see me adding the full 3.5 ounces of this fragrance. According to Brambleberry's calculator, we are well within that safe usage rate for this recipe. But with a high fragrance amount, but not over that. It's still in the safe usage rate. Always check your unique fragrance. If the website has a fragrance calculator, always check since each fragrance will have its own unique usage rate. You don't want to accidentally have too much fragrance. Now I'm ready to split our batch since we're using 2 separate colors. The first batch will be our rose clay, And I went ahead and measured approximately 24 to 25 ounces of soap out into a separate pour container. And then we'll add our rose clay. Here is our rose clay going in. You could stick blend this if you wanted to. I chose not to. I typically don't actually. I typically just hand stir my colors into the soap batter, and that's to prevent the soap batter from thickening too fast on me. Sometimes the stick blender can make your recipe move very fast. And because I was not sure how fast this recipe would move, I just took caution and hand stirred it. But actually, this was a very well behaved recipe. It does not thicken up whatsoever. It stays that beautiful, nice, light, thin trace. So you could stick blend these if you wanted to, but I just used my essentially the spatula to stir these. And as far as the charcoal color, if you prefer a darker, deep black charcoal color, feel free to use 2 teaspoons of charcoal instead of the one that I used for the recipe. But I do love this deep, rich gray color matching with that beautiful rose clay. So I purposely wanted it a bit more gray as opposed to a deep black. But again, to reach that deep black, just use a bit more charcoal. 2 teaspoons would do it. For this Circling Taiwan Swirl, you want to get your dividers in the mold. I'll show you how easy it was to do that. You just simply set the sides of the dividers here and then slip in your plastic dividers, and it is literally as easy as that. When you are pouring your soap, you want to make sure to apply firm pressure to the dividers to try to prevent the soap from bleeding into the other compartments. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm holding them down firmly with my left hand while I carefully pour our first charcoal colors in here. I'll do that in the top and bottom part of our mold, and then the middle will have the beautiful rose clay pink. As I'm doing this, I'm paying attention to how much soap I'm pouring. I want each of the 3 separate compartments to be approximately the same height of soap. And then I carefully remove the sides before I remove the middle. I probably should have removed the middle first just because it actually made it a little bit harder to get the middle ones up. But yeah, just kind of take your time. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect. You'll see how I fix that anyways. And you'll see a Circling Taiwan Swirl is actually pretty hard to mess up, believe it or not. It's a pretty forgiving design, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much. And then what I did is I poured the remainder of the soap in the containers carefully up at the top just to kind of even out the design. And you'll see I'll do the same with the charcoal color as well. For the swirl itself, you can use something like a chopstick, or in this case, you see me using a small wooden dowel, and you will just simply go up and down across your entire mold. The dowel or the chopstick is touching the bottom of my mold, and I just make a very simple swipes up and down carefully. And then once you get all the way to the other side, you will go ahead and swirl your mold as many times as you would like. Typically 3 times is what you see a lot of people do. I think I did a few more circles than 3, but yeah, just go ahead and swirl that until you like the look of your swirls. And then when you're all done, you will carefully take your chopstick out and you're ready to go ahead and oven process your soap. You don't have to do this step, but I prefer just to make sure the soap goes through a full gel phase. And basically that's putting it in a warm oven. I did it to basically turn my oven on to 170 degrees, turn it off, pop your soap in, turn your oven light on, and you can leave your soap in there for about 5 or 6 hours or overnight if you wish. and that will help it to harden up a lot faster. And again, it prevents those partial gels. And the soap has a beautiful, richer color as well. And then, because I didn't want to waste any soap, by the way, I went ahead and had a second mold here, and I went and scraped all the remaining soap into the second mold, and we'll have kind of a secondary design. This one has a lovely floral design on the bottom of the mold. I apologize, I don't remember where I got this mold from, so if you're wondering where I got this one from, I wish I could remember. It might have been Temu or it might have been Amazon. But yeah, it's a simple silicone mold with some flowers at the bottom, and it just looks really, really cool when you pop it out of the mold. So in this case, you see the rose clay soap is finally thickening just a little bit. It's more of getting towards that medium trace, but in all honesty, guys, this recipe is so well behaved. You could easily probably get 40 plus minutes of working time out of this recipe. So this recipe would be even great for more intricate designs. Say you have something that you need a long working time. Some of the marbled soaps require long working time. Some of the drop swirl is shorter working times, but yeah, this recipe would be great for something that is super intricate and requires long working times. And then for this one, I just did a simple figure 8 swirl across the top. I didn't insert the chopstick all the way. I just did it at the top. And I popped this one into the oven as well. And you'll see the finished result the next day. I had to wait all the way to the next morning. It looks so cool. I had some copper that was obviously stuck to the mold that stayed, copper mica. But yeah, it looks great. And then I decided to go ahead and cut these into individual little bars. I think I measured about 2 inches and just simply used my wire cutter here to cut each one of these ones into separate bars. And then I'll go ahead and show you how we do the Circling Taiwan Swirl, because that one takes a bit more, you have to be careful when you cut it to actually have the Taiwan Swirl show up correctly. For the Circling Taiwan Swirl, I measured our loaf and I'm going to cut it into 4 equal sections. Each section is about 2 inches. And then you'll see here in just a moment how we cut each separate 2-inch chunk to reveal that beautiful lotus pattern. And I'll also, as you see me doing, I am wiping our soap cutter with a paper towel in between each cut, just so that it doesn't mar any of the internal surface of the soap. Keeps everything nice and clean, and the cuts are nice and sharp. Now for the tricky part, you're going to lay each soap chunk on its side. So as you see, I'm showing you the top of the soap and I simply turn it to the right, which reveals the side of it. And we're going to cut down the side actually to reveal that gorgeous lotus swirl. And this time I have a different soap cutter here so I can make sure each cut was exactly 1 inch. And this soap cutter is a nice simple one. I believe you can get this on Amazon if I recall. And voila, look at that gorgeous swirl. This is one of my absolute favorite designs. It just turns out so beautiful every single time. All right, the last thing that you can do to really make your soaps pop is bevel them. And here you see me beveling the soaps with just a simple vegetable peeler. You probably have one in your kitchen. And you will just carefully, carefully, gently run it over the sides of the soap. And it just makes them wonderfully polished looking. And it makes those edges nice and smooth, which feel nicer, quite frankly, in your hands and in the bath. And then I go ahead and let these sit out to fully cure and for all that moisture in the soap, the water in the recipe to evaporate out. So again, we're looking for longevity. So for maximum longevity, you want the soaps to essentially air dry and be put on a rack of some type that has great airflow. Don't put it in a humid environment. You want a nice dry environment, and go ahead and let them rest for about 4 to 6 weeks. They are safe to use a much sooner than that. Actually, research shows saponification, which is essentially the chemical reaction of the lye and the oils, is actually done in 48 hours. So you could technically use these after 2 days, but they won't last as long. So the last part of longevity is making sure your soaps air dry for about 4 to 6 weeks to wait for all that water to evaporate out of the recipe, and that will ensure that your bars last as long as they possibly can in the bath, and they will just give you lots and lots of enjoyment for weeks to come. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. If you did, again, drop a comment below. I so appreciate all of you, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next soapy tutorial. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.